There are days when nothing serious happens, yet the heart suddenly feels strangely heavy. Just a simple comment from someone, a glance that feels slightly cold, a message sent but not replied to as quickly as usual, a tiny change in the day's plan. All of it is so small, only enough to create a thin little ripple. Yet somehow, it turns into a storm inside us. We still do what we need to do. We still smile, still show the world that we are fine, but deep inside, the mind keeps repeating a tired question. Why did that bother me so much? How can something so small make me uncomfortable the entire day? How can a tiny detail pull my entire mood into darkness? Am I too sensitive? Or am I weaker than I thought? While others forget these moments instantly, we hold on to them, as if an invisible hand is gripping our heart tightly, uncomfortable but not knowing how to loosen it, worried yet unable to identify the source, exhausted but still not understanding what is happening within. The truth is, what hurts us is rarely the external situation. It is how the mind interprets and reacts to it. A word is just a word until we add the emotion of defensiveness into it. A small change is just a change until we add the thought that something is wrong. We do not suffer because of the world. We suffer because of the story our mind creates about the world. If right now you are feeling unsettled by something very small, pause with me for a moment. Look directly at that feeling with gentleness, because this is exactly where our healing begins. When we look at a situation, we often believe we are seeing clearly what is happening. But in reality, what we see is not the objective truth. Most of the time, it is the interpretation automatically created by the mind. For example, when someone says something in a normal tone, the mind instantly inserts a meaning that they are criticizing us. When someone does not smile back, the mind decides that they do not like us. A message not replied to right away suddenly becomes a sign that we are no longer important. In Buddhism, this is called ignorance. Not ignorance in the sense of lacking knowledge, but the inability to see things in their original nature. We put an invisible veil over our eyes and look at life through that blurry lens. Every word others speak passes through the filter of our fear of judgment. Every change passes through the filter of our need for safety. Every glance is filtered through the fragile ego that constantly seeks validation. So instead of touching reality itself, we end up dealing with our own imagination. The external event is tiny, but the story in our head magnifies it into a threat. The truth itself does not harm us. The pain only begins when the mind starts adding layers upon layers of meaning on top of it. If we can recognize the very moment the mind starts adding its extra stories, we will have the chance to pause and not be swept away by the storm we create inside ourselves. And that is the very first step on the journey of clear seeing and true healing. When we begin to realize that suffering does not come from the external event, but from the way the mind interprets it, we naturally want to understand life more deeply. The Buddha pointed out three truths which, if we truly see them, can lighten the heart in a miraculous way. These truths are impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and nonself. They are not dry concepts to memorize. They are realities unfolding in every breath we take. The first truth is impermanence. Everything in this world changes. The weather changes. People change. Our thoughts and emotions change. Even our bodies are changing every second. What makes us suffer is that we want what we love to remain exactly as it is. We want a relationship to stay gentle. We want our health to stay strong. We want to always be as capable and confident as we expect ourselves to be. And when life does not go the way we planned, we feel betrayed. But nothing is wrong. Everything is simply following its nature, which is to change. Holding on is the root of disappointment. Acceptance is the key that brings peace back to the heart. The second truth is suffering. Suffering does not only appear when we are hurt. It also appears when we cling to what cannot be held. We try to hold on to a relationship that has already reached the moment it needs to transform. We worry when a plan shifts unexpectedly. We fear that we are no longer seen the way we once were. We believe suffering comes from an unfair world, but in truth, it comes from the rigidity of our expectations. We want life to match the picture we have painted in our mind. Yet life always moves like a river. The tighter we try to hold water in our hands, the faster it slips away. The third truth is non-self, perhaps the hardest to embrace. We often believe there is a solid self inside us, a self that must be protected, proven, and upheld. But if we look deeply, we will see that thoughts, emotions, and memories are constantly changing. So which one of them is truly me? We are like a continuous flow. Things come and go. Nothing lasts long enough to be called a permanent identity. When we see this clearly, we fear criticism less and become less prideful in praise, because there is no fixed self left to defend. When we truly understand these three truths, we will discover a profound liberation. There is nothing in life solid enough for us to cling to, and there is nothing powerful enough to destroy us. The heart begins to open, and instead of fighting against life, we flow with it. Every moment becomes an opportunity to rest in awareness and gently smile. When we understand that everything is changing and that the self is not fixed, we begin to see more clearly how suffering is formed in every moment of life. Usually, everything happens so fast that we believe our emotions and reactions appear instantly when something affects us. But in truth, between stimulus and response is not a single continuous line. It is a long chain made of many steps that we can observe. First comes the external event, a word, a glance, a sudden situation. Immediately after that, the body reacts first. A slight tightness in the chest, heat rising in the face, the hands clenching, or the breath suddenly becoming sharp. Then the thoughts step in. We start interpreting everything through old habits. It may be the belief that we are being disrespected, or that we are being abandoned. Next comes the impulse to act, wanting to argue, wanting to walk away, wanting to shut down and hide. And finally comes the visible reaction, a sharp remark, a withdrawn attitude, a decision made in a moment of heat that we regret later. When we do not see clearly, we think everything happens all at once. But when awareness is present, we realize there's a tiny gap between each stage of that process. A slender space, like a thin thread of light, yet holding within it the entirety of our inner freedom. If we can pause right when the body starts to tense up, if we can notice the very first thought as it forms, if we can feel the impulse that is trying to push us into reacting quickly, just one mindful breath slipping into that space is enough. Immediately, we have a choice. Not to be swept away, not to be led by old patterns. Mindfulness is not about avoiding emotions. It is about seeing each step clearly. When we see clearly, we gain the power to stop causing ourselves unnecessary suffering. And just one moment of mastering that space is enough to show us what true inner freedom feels like. When we have seen the chain of reactions within the mind, we begin to understand why some emotions can break us down while others cannot. The Buddha used the image of two arrows to explain this. The first arrow is the natural pain that appears in life. Everyone must experience it. When we are rejected, when we are misunderstood, when someone we love leaves us, when our important plans fall apart. This pain cannot be avoided. It is simply a part of being human. It may hurt, but it does not destroy the heart. Yet right after that, we often shoot ourselves with the second arrow. It is the thoughts and stories we add onto the pain. We turn an event into a judgment of our worth. We turn loss into a definition of the future. We turn temporary emotions into our identity. If the first arrow only pierces the flesh, the second arrow goes straight into the heart. Imagine when a relationship ends. The first arrow is the emptiness when the hand we once held is no longer there. It is a natural sadness. But the second arrow says we are unlovable. It says we will always be alone. It says we are not enough. And just like that, a simple sorrow becomes a wound with no bottom. Not because love ended, but because we believe the ending tells the truth about who we are. The truth is, pain only needs to be acknowledged in order to dissolve with time. But the stories we add can stay for a very long time, sometimes even a lifetime. The beautiful thing is that we can stop the second arrow the moment we notice it appearing. We only need to gently acknowledge that this pain is real, but it does not define us. We only need enough clarity to tell ourselves that being hurt does not mean we have failed, nor does it mark the end of our lives. When we stop punishing ourselves with our own thoughts, pain is allowed to be just pain. It comes, it touches us, and then it goes. It helps us grow. It opens a heart that knows how to love more deeply and more freely. When we learn not to shoot ourselves with the second arrow, the mind becomes steadier in the face of life's shifting winds. But this world is always blowing its gusts that can easily disturb the heart. The Buddha called these the 8 worldly winds: gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, fame and disrepute. These opposing forces swirl around us every day. They make us joyful when someone praises us and heavy when we are criticized. They make us excited when we succeed and disappointed when an opportunity slips away. We usually believe our feelings depend on what happens externally. If someone compliments us, we feel worthy. If someone criticizes us, we feel like a failure. But that is because we confuse our true nature with these passing winds. What we chase out there is just like clouds. Today they gather thick. Tomorrow they might disappear. If we build our happiness upon the clouds, our life will always be shaky. When the mind is untrained, we are blown around by whatever life brings. A compliment can lift us up high. A criticism can drag us down low. But when awareness is present, we see that all of these emotions are simply winds passing through the sky of the mind. The wind may roar fiercely, yet the sky remains wide and still. We are the sky. Thoughts and emotions are only the weather. What we can practice right now is to stop making the ego so important. We do not need to prove ourselves right. We do not need to cling to an image of who we think we must be in the eyes of others. When we are no longer blown off course by life's winds, we can stand steady upon the ground of our true nature, a solid state where praise does not make us arrogant and blame does not make us collapse. When we are no longer swept away by the winds of the world, we begin to look deeply into what is happening inside our own mind. Usually, we believe that whatever the mind says must be the truth. When the mind says we are not good enough, we believe it immediately. When the mind says others are judging us, we shrink back. When the mind says things will get worse, fear rises in our chest. But the Buddha taught that every phenomenon in the mind is just like clouds that arise and pass away. They are not the sky, and we are the sky. Every thought is just an event that appears and then fades. It is created by memories, habits, current emotions, and the things we have experienced. If we change the situation, if we change our mood, our thoughts also change. So what makes us believe they hold the ultimate truth? Suffering arises when we identify ourselves with our thoughts. When the mind says, "I am not worthy," we instantly assume that is who we truly are. When the mind says, "Nobody loves me," we take it as proof that we have no value. Mindfulness invites us to speak differently to ourselves. Instead of saying, "I am anxious," we can say anxiety is present. Instead of saying, "I am angry," we can say heat is rising in the chest. It may sound small, but it is a profoundly powerful shift. We move from being controlled by thoughts to becoming the one who observes them. We move from being drowned by emotions to becoming the space through which emotions pass. Imagine the mind as a vast lake. When emotions rise, they are just small ripples on the surface, but the depth of the lake remains intact, still and unchanged. In the same way, the sky remains wide and bright, no matter how many storms or dark clouds gather. Everything happening is only on the surface of our experience. It is not our core. It is not our true nature. Each time an emotion shows up, we can quietly whisper a simple phrase. This is just a thought. This is just a feeling. It comes, and it will go. When we practice like this, we are no longer prisoners of the mind. We become its master, and that is one of the most important steps of healing that anyone can begin today. When we realize that thoughts and emotions are simply phenomena that come and go, we no longer need to run away from them. The next important step is learning how to live with awareness in the most ordinary moments. Many people think that peace can only be found by escaping the busy world, by going to the mountains or entering a monastery. But the Buddha clearly taught that the path back to ourselves begins with the simple things we already do each day. When we walk, just know that we are walking. Feel the feet touching the ground. Feel the body moving. Do not let the mind run back to the past or rush ahead into unfinished plans. Just one step filled with awareness is enough to bring the mind home to the present. When we eat, be aware that we are eating. Feel each spoonful of food touch the mouth. Feel grateful for the nourishment we are receiving. Do not eat while getting lost in screens or worrying about what has not happened yet. When there is only the meal and our complete presence in that moment, we are practicing the art of honoring life. When pressure and stress arise, instead of trying to push them away, we can stop and take a slow, deep breath. Inhaling, feel the cool air entering the chest. Exhaling, release the burdens the mind has been holding tightly. Just one fully conscious breath is enough to calm the waves of emotion. In the midst of chaos, we can still create a small space where the mind can rest. You can try a short practice right now. Sit upright. Relax your shoulders. Inhale gently and know that you are inhaling. Exhale and know that you are exhaling. If thoughts appear, simply smile at them. No need to chase them away. No need to judge them. They will pass on their own, like clouds drifting across the vast sky of your mind. Mindfulness does not separate us from life. On the contrary, it allows us to touch life more deeply. The wonderful thing is that we do not need to change anything around us. We only need to change the way we show up. When we are fully present in each moment, every small action becomes sacred. Every day becomes a chance to heal the heart from within. No matter how well we practice mindfulness, life will still have moments that strike like a sudden storm. The plans we believed would succeed may collapse. The person we love may turn away. Our health, work, and relationships may no longer look like what we once hoped for. And in those moments, the heart hurts so deeply that it feels almost impossible to endure. It can seem as if the entire world is falling apart beneath our feet. When we face intense suffering like that, the mind often tells stories that make the pain even heavier. It says we have failed. It says no one needs us anymore. It says the future ahead is only darkness. But the Buddha taught that pain is natural. It shows that we once loved, once hoped, once lived with our whole heart. To feel pain means the heart knows how to cherish. The problem only arises when we turn pain into our identity. When we believe that someone leaving means we are unworthy of love. When we think a single failure means our entire life has lost meaning. When we allow a wound to define who we are. But if we can pause and look directly at the emotion without adding any judgment, everything changes. Simply acknowledge that this hurts. And that is okay. We do not need to hide it. We do not need to pretend to be strong. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Feel the ache in your heart. Know that it is real, but also know that it does not define you. Emotions are visitors who come and go. We do not need to rearrange the whole house to keep them. We can open the door to let them in and gently let them leave when the time comes. When we face suffering with openness instead of resistance, we discover a gentle strength that has always existed beneath the wound. Not a strength to fight the world, but the strength to embrace ourselves even when life is not as we wished. We realize that we still hold our full worth even in our deepest pain. Because our heart is still beating. The love within us is still alive. And hope can be reignited with just a single mindful breath. Pain is real. Suffering is a choice. Let pain help you grow, but never let it become the name you call yourself each day. After we have walked through pain, emotional storms, and the moments when everything seemed to collapse, we begin to realize that something truly miraculous exists within us. Emotions come and go like waves in the open ocean. Sometimes calm, sometimes violent, sometimes rising high as if they could drown everything. Yet no matter how strong the waves become, the nature of the ocean never changes. Emotions are waves. The nature of our mind is the vast, quiet ocean. We are not the waves rising in a single moment. We are the spaciousness that can hold every wave. Anger is not who we are. Worry is not who we are. Hurt is not who we are. They are simply visitors that appear and leave when their conditions have finished. We are the place where they arise, a space that can never be harmed by them. Remember that you have never been the things that caused you pain. You have never been your failures, never the criticisms or the mistakes of the past. You have always been the deep ocean, the boundless openness. The waves are only a small chapter in the story of your life. They can never describe the whole of who you are. You may gently say to yourself, I am not the wave. I am the ocean. Because the moment you recognize this truth, no emotion can force an identity on you that does not belong to you. And in that moment, true inner freedom begins.